Good morning and welcome to the MAP Citizens Advisory Board meeting of July 28, 2022. It is the appointed time and we will call the meeting to order. You've been furnished with copies of the minutes of our June 23 meeting. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes? Shall we approve them? It's been moved by Michael Adams, seconded by Zane Boatwright, that we approve the minutes as presented. Is there further discussion? Cast your vote. The item has passed. The minutes have been approved. That brings us to item number 3 on our agenda. Let's look first at item 3A. That is the MAPS 3 Revenue and Expenditure Report. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the MAPS 3 Revenue Expenditure Report for the period ending June 30th, 2022. On the revenue side for the month, $1,628 for fiscal year of $1,070,274. And a total of $837,335,654. That is 3.4% above target. Then on the expenditure side for the month, $4,027,007. Fiscal year of $32,765,921, and for a total of $776,626,195. Then you also have the budget and obligations report for the period to July 5th, and you can see that in your packet. I won't go through it line by line, but if you have any questions on either of these, I'll try and answer them.
Questions for David? Hearing no questions, shall we receive the revenue and expenditure report and the budget and obligations report? It's been moved by Bob Nalen that we receive these. It's been seconded by Zane Boatwright. Is there further discussion? Cast your vote. The matter has passed and the items have been received. That brings us to item B, David.
Sorry, I got...
That's all right. This is the final plans and specifications to be advertised for bids.
Right, so you've seen some updates on this. Remember that MAPS 3 was tasked with doing the design for the project. MAPS 4 is actually going to construct it. But today, we're very happy to be bringing you final plans so that we can send this out to bid. Travis Pauly is here today from Populous to give you a presentation, show you everything that's included in those plans.
Welcome, Travis.
Hello, good morning. How are you all?
Great.
Yeah, happy to be here to be showing you guys final plans and specs for the Fairgrounds Coliseum. So a lot of hard work's gone into it and we're wrapping it up right now. And we want to present to you what we got. I know you guys have seen this a couple times, so some of it will be really familiar. I've tried to throw some new stuff in here too so we can see some new items and elements of the Coliseum. So we'll get right into it. We all know where we are out here at the Fairgrounds. Main entries right there off of Gordon Cooper Boulevard, or off of May Avenue on Gordon Cooper Boulevard, where you see the orange arrow. We're replacing the Noric, as we know, built in 1965. Full all year round, over 250 event days a year. Biggest economic impact of any public facility we have here in the city. We're going right next to it. As we've talked about previously, we're overlapping it just a little bit due to our utility restrictions right there. But the intent being that the Noric will stay open and operational throughout the construction of the new Coliseum. I'll also point out that expanded parking that is replacing the parking that we're overtaking directly south of the new Coliseum there that you see noted as a separate project. Phasing, we've talked about this as well, but I wanted to just touch on it real quick to remind everybody, phase 1 in your lower right corner there will be taking off the front portion of the existing Noric Coliseum or Noric Arena to make way for where we overlap it just a little bit. Phase 2 in the upper right is the construction of the new Coliseum. Phase 3 will be the demolition of the Noric, which you see in the lower left there. And also what I'll point out there is that blue temporary connector. That's what will be used to get competitors from the Super Barn over to the new Coliseum while the Nork is being demolished. And then phase 4, of course, is the finish out of that site where the Nork Arena was located, and the finish out of the show office that is existing right there. You see the little blue extension on that show office. And then eventually the intent is to have a connector building that connects the Super Barn back to the new Coliseum. So in the site plan, that's what this looks like. We've got our Coliseum there. You can see the show office up connected to the Super Barn that we're maintaining and adding that little addition to, and then where that future connector will be located. We've got our plaza space on the north there that connects back to the Fairgrounds. You can see how we're coming in off of Gordon Cooper Boulevard. We'll be coming right into the main entry of the Coliseum, so it'll be a really nice entry. You'll be approaching just like that image you first saw on the first screen. And then on the south there is where we've got our chiller yard and some of our other loading dock and more utilitarian functions. Floor plan looks pretty familiar to what you've seen before. Not a lot of design changes since we last presented. Nice big 270 by 140 foot arena floor there. We got our back of house west and east on either side. Really nice big staging areas for all of the equine, livestock, and other type of events that go in there, as well as that return alley that you see coming around on the south side of it for those same events. Our locker rooms up on the north side for all of the basketball, wrestling tournaments, little retail space off the main lobby, kitchen, and then our service areas down there on the south side. Up on our concourse level, same thing. It should look really familiar. Not a lot of changes from the last time we presented to you guys. All of that public access will be coming into this bowl from this concourse level. So that'll be a really great aspect to this new arena is no matter where you got to go, if you're going to the concession, if you got to go to the restroom, you're not leaving the bowl and leaving the action. You can still see everything happening right there because you're open to the bowl and to the scoreboard area. Main entries right there on your right side, that big grand staircase and the escalators, nice big open concourse in that area where they can set up vendors and exhibitors. That's where the public bar is located. And then of course we've got our lounge on the opposite end in purple there. And then throughout the space in the 4 different quadrants, we've got those concession stands noted in purple. And I'll show you a little bit more on those later on in the presentation. But one in each basically quadrant of the building there, of the concourse level. And up above all that, about 51 feet, we've got our catwalk, access from 2 sides, and then the 6 lowered spotlight platforms that come off that catwalk, as well as the electrical and sound room up there, and of course the scoreboard in the middle. That scoreboard is retractable, so they will be able to pull that up for events that it's not needed in, up into that structure above the catwalk. And then what you also see there is those rigging beams that are spread throughout the arena floor that'll help them have maximum flexibility in setting up whatever kind of stage or anything they want on that arena floor. So that's a big asset that they don't have now that will be a really big improvement. Roof plans, pretty straightforward. Sloped roof to the 2 mechanical roof wells. Those roof wells, as we've talked about before, are one of the things that allow us to be really efficient with our mechanical systems, so key element of that plan there. And then as we cut this thing in half and look at it, this is kind of what it looks like if we cut the model in half. You can see how everything starts to stack up. Our bowl is raised about 6 feet off of that event floor for all of those equine and livestock events. There's the nice concrete ring wall that goes all the way around that for protection and to raise that height for better viewing. We've got our functional spaces and return alleys down below, our concourse right there as you walk up the grandstands, and then you see those mechanical roof wells on either side that pull that air into the space. And then of course you can see that rigging grid that goes across the top of the arena ceiling there. As we zoom in on that, you can see it a little bit better here with the color coding. The catwalk up there with those recessed spotlight platforms that I talked about before, the judges platforms for the events that need those. You can see the concourse there with the drink rail right off the concourse that leads you down into the grandstands. And then, of course, our return alley mechanical spaces below all that. A few of the layouts that I wanted to show you guys. I know we've talked about this, but it's been a little while. So this thing can be really flexible and have a variety of different layouts. This is kind of the base layout that we've got right here. This would be what you're looking at for equine and livestock type of events that are there throughout the year. About 4,700 seats in this layout. You can see the 3D to kind of get a better sense of what that will look like and feel like. We've gone with 21-inch seats throughout the bowl, padded seats, so that's a nice size seat. It'll be a big improvement of what we're used to sitting in out there. It'll be really comfortable and a nice experience, an elevated experience for everybody using the facility out there. That's what we're seeing in a lot of these facilities, arenas, stadiums, all of that stuff is prioritizing the experience. And so having those nice size seats and padded seats is going to really elevate the experience for everyone out there. Rodeo or bull riding layout, we can expand that. You can see that ring wall kind of there. That would expand down to the arena floor in this type of layout with telescopic portable bleachers that would come down to the floor. And then we can also add in floor seats depending on what size of rodeo or bull riding layout they want. We can get up to about 7,000 seats with that layout. An in-stage concert, we can get up to about 7,300 seats, obviously using those telescopic bleachers that come down to the floor as well for the full bowl experience. And an in-stage setup, the stage side would probably be blocked off, so that's what gets us to around 7,300 seats in that layout. And then our basketball layout, that's where we've got the most seats, 7,500 seats using the telescopic bleachers, as well as the floor seats all the way around. The exterior design hadn't been changed too much from the last time we've seen it. We have updated that panel layout a little bit to right-size the panels with the product that was selected, but that's really our feature element going around the building is that panel layout that was inspired by the Western and native patterns that we showed in a previous presentation. As you go around, you can see the big OKC kind of integrated into the panels there on the highway side. We wanted something big and bold that you could see from a distance as you're driving by on 40 or 44, kind of an identifying element. That plaza space that we talked about previously, nice big open space that could be used for a variety of functions during the fair or any other time for exhibitors. And then as we get inside the space, our main lobby here, nice big open space. We've got kind of a neutral palette as our backdrop with those wood and charcoal features, kind of the elements, the main feature elements that make it pop. We've integrated that big OKC wood element on the ceiling there. We think that'll be a really nice element as you walk into the space, kind of that Instagrammable moment of people stopping and taking the pictures. They've made it. They're at the Coliseum. They've made it to OKC. And then a big, nice display there on the wall as soon as you walk in, which can be a static display or a digital display. We're set up for either one, whatever the fair ends up going with there. But big open concourse space or lobby space open to the concourse above. You can see the pendant lights there and the wood ceiling above. And then what I thought I'd do is something we haven't shown previously is walk through a little bit of the interior materials. So you can see them in this space, and I'll go into the actual material slides here following this, but walk through the lobby space and the concourse, and then show you a couple of the nice feature areas that we've got around the concourse. So within our lobby space, you saw there we've got a pretty neutral palette as our backdrop, and then the wood and the charcoal colors is kind of our feature elements. We have gone with more of a beige or off-white as our main field color in this instead of a white color for ceilings and stuff like that, with that in mind that we've got all the dirt events and all that dust that comes up and gets moved out every year. That's a big concern for the fairgrounds. So we don't want something that's going to look dirty all the time by trying to do a nice bright white ceiling. So we've thought about that with all of our materials, is trying to do something that has that in mind with everything we do. And then around the concourse, this will be a similar palette to the kind of field colors of the concourse, but we've popped in several nice feature elements to bring some life to the concourse and some color and some texture and things like that. So right above that grand staircase when you walk up will be that atrium bar. We've got a really nice copper tile that will surround that bar with some nice bold black and white tile in the backdrop of that to really set that area off. On the other end of the bowl, we've got our lounge, which will feature some darker tones as well as some brass portal elements to really set the bar and other elements off. We've brought in some blue bar front tile there to coincide with the blue ring that goes around the arena wall. On the concourse side of that, we've got a really neat tile that'll go on the wainscot around that. It's a textured tile. I wish you could see the real thing here. It's a really nice look, as well as bringing in those brass and blue elements that I talked about before. The suites similar palette, but a little bit of an elevated look there with the wood feature wall and the charcoal tile on the bar backdrop. And then around the concourse, we saw an opportunity to bring in some color and life to the concourse through our concession areas. And we also thought it was a really neat opportunity to use it as kind of a wayfinding technique or ability. So you saw those concessions that were in each quadrant, and we tried to think about how do we want to identify those and brand them, but we don't have sponsors, and we don't want to nail it down to a specific food or concession type, so how can we do that? So we thought we'd do it with these distinct colors and then use kind of directional naming to identify each one of those. And we tried to tie it in with some of the vintage or retro kind of signs that you see around Automobile Alley and Stockyard City and different areas of the city. So that's where the inspiration for kind of the look and feel of that signage came from. And then, the East Grill would be on the east side of the stadium. The Champions Corner is that one up in the corner. Northwest Kitchen is up in the northwest side. So, wherever you are, you can say, hey, meet me in Champions Corner. People will see it from wherever they are in the arena and know where to go. And it also leaves that sponsorship opportunity that if somebody wanted to come in and say, yeah, we're going to take over this concession, it can be the so-and-so East Grill. And they can still have that opportunity there while maintaining the look that we've got going on here. Signage is also another thing that as we've dug into the details and we're finalizing everything, we've got all this signage designed around the facility. So goes in line with that palette that you've seen before. I think it's a really sharp, kind of modern but yet timeless look that we've got going with the charcoal and cream colors and the wood and brass accents that you see here. So that row and section signage that you'll see on the left side is kind of the more standard signage that you'll see all around the bowl, as well as that one in the middle right that'll be pointing you to your section. And then some feature signage like the lounge sign, the Gateway of Champions that'll be under that tunnel that the either basketball players or equine competitors or whoever's coming through the tunnel will be going under. And then some pylon signage that'll go around that plaza space there. So all tying that together with our interior design, exterior design, trying to make sure we have a cohesive look throughout. Construction budget, updated from the last time you saw us. We've got funding from MAPS 3, MAPS 4, Hotel Motel, FF&E, and other funding. Right now our budget total is just over $102 million. Our latest construction cost estimate puts us right under that, just over $102 million. The alternates that we're carrying right now are just down to two alternates, which are food service equipment and graphics and signage. What we've done with each of those is try to split them out and include the essential items for the Coliseum to function in the base bid. We don't want to leave something in an alternate that might not get picked up that is necessary for the Coliseum to function. So those are in the base bid, the things that we can live without or put in a later phase, food service equipment, and then more of the decorative signage are in those alternate numbers. Anticipated schedule, we're right here at final plans and specs, right on schedule in July. I'm wrapping them up right now. Bidding and award will happen next month in August. And then construction is slated to start right after the fair, September, October timeframe. We're hoping for a April 24 completion date so that we can get this thing wrapped up before the fair that year. So that's the goal. And right now we're on schedule to meet that. That's what I've got for you today. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a couple
Please.
of questions.
Yeah.
The other funding that you showed on the slide, you showed MAPS 4, MAPS 3, and the tax, the hotel tax. What is the other funding that you anticipate?
So that's a question for me.
Yep.
Okay.
So the finance director and I are working on identifying those funds right now. Still in the process. Once those funds are identified, then this will go to council, but we won't send it to council. We can't send it to council for advertisement until that funding is identified. So we've met our requirements here with the MAPS 3, and we will take it on MAPS 4, and like I said, it'll have to wait until we can identify that. I think it'll be in short order.
Well, if I saw it right, it was $23 million, so that's not insignificant. So, well, for you, but yeah. Anyway, well, okay. So you guys are working on identifying that.
Yes, sir.
Well, great. Secondly, most of these arenas that you see around the country, and most of the ones that we've seen here in the past, have all been kind of round and circular. I mean, in their outside appearance, this looks different anyway. You know, roofs that look like this and more of a rectangular kind of a look on the exterior. Is that just a design preference, or do we gain something from that, or?
So I'll go back actually to one of my very first slides here to try and help answer that. But you'll see those two utility restrictions running right there in those red dashed lines.
Yes.
Those are really what gave it that unique shape on the front side, as we do not have much room. This is a really tight site. And so those restrictions right there are kind of what defined a little bit of the shape, is the offsets that we had and how far we could build out. As far as the rectangular structure on the back, yeah, part of that is the efficiency of trying to get the most economical and efficient building we can. Integrating those roof wells in there, having the truss that goes right over it, and not having all the curved walls and having to have different trusses for each bay and things like that. That's part of that, is trying to get, when he kind of came back to this after the first version back in 2018, before it was a MAPS project, we had to do some really significant changes to get it into what at the time was the MAPS budget. So that was part of that. It was looking at what's the most efficient shape for this thing. But I think that the restrictions and the way the site caused us to shape it has kind of, in a result, given it the unique shape that we've got. So I think it's turned out pretty well for the overall look of it, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I like it. I knew it was different than most that we've seen.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a question?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dan.
well, I noticed on chart 20, and this may be for David, and I may be early, but in most of all of our other MAPS projects, we've had significant artwork that was put in the main entryway, and I don't see anything in this one yet. Are there some long-range plans for adding something?
We are required to meet the 1% for art. We're just not at that point yet.
So
Travis can talk maybe more. You should have been. Are you involved?
Yeah, that is part of this project, but it's gone in a little bit of a unique direction from what we usually see. Instead of doing something that is directly inside or on the Coliseum, working with the Arts Council and the group that's kind of balancing between us and the artists, as well as the Fairgrounds had a big, was an integral part of that team as well. What they've decided to do is, instead of putting something inside the arena, is they really wanted something that could almost have more of an impact for the Fairgrounds as a whole. So if you see Gordon Cooper Boulevard there right on your right with a big median, the intent is for a large piece of artwork to go in that median closer to the entry, closer to May Avenue, to kind of signify the entry into the Coliseum as well as the entire entry into the Fairgrounds. So they thought they could get bigger impact, bigger art, more draw for the artists by having something like that, as well as an impact for the Fairgrounds as a whole, and not just this facility. So that's the direction they decided to go. Mm-hmm.
Bob?
Not really a question, just a comment. The Fairgrounds Subcommittee met a couple of days ago, and Travis made the presentation to us. He's very persuasive and got a unanimous approval from the subcommittee to send it on to the advisory board. Tim O'Toole, who's just retired as the president of the State Fair, has been a member of the subcommittee all along and expressed the view that, of course, the State Fair has worked with Populous all the way along to develop the design and meet the needs of the State Fair, and the fair is tremendously excited about this design. They're very, very happy with it and feel that it meets their needs in every aspect. So sort of a parting comment from Tim was that he was very much in favor of this and pleased with the work the Populous has done. It does come with the unanimous recommendation of our subcommittee.
Great. Any other questions? Michael?
Yeah, Travis, we've seen and discussed the project before, and we've talked about capacity and amenities and functionality. Anything significantly changed in this final?
Not really. I mean, we've stayed pretty consistent to what you've seen previously. The biggest change probably came before we met last time, and that is that show office that you see there in the upper left. Whereas in our preliminary reports and early on, we were completely removing that show office with the NORC because we didn't think we could save it. We talked through that a lot, did a lot of study on it, and decided it was worth trying to save us probably a few million bucks.
That's part of the existing NORC that you're just,
It kind of spans between the Super Barn and the NORC. It was added on, it's the
Connector.
latest addition to the NORC Super Barn. And therefore it's the newest thing out there. And so we hated to take it down and rebuild something that works really well for them. So that's probably the biggest change is instead of taking that all down, we've saved it and we're just kind of squaring it off so that when the connector comes on board, it can meet right up with it. Because we are going to have to take down the outer corridor of it. So we're just adding that corridor back as kind of a squared off area. But around the Coliseum, not a lot of changes, just further developing the drawings, working with the Fairgrounds daily on all the technical aspects of it, all the IT, sound, all the equipment going in there, and all the nitty-gritty stuff that goes into final plans and specs.
there was an article, I think, in the paper the other day indicating that the estimated cost was quite a bit more than what had been originally projected, and I assume that's part of the extra funding we're needing. But I was just curious, did we do any value engineering in here to try to do anything to get closer to the original estimate?
Yeah, we've really done that throughout. The big one was when we first got it and brought it down from that original project. But throughout the project, we've known we all know the kind of world we're living in right now and the economic environment. And so it's been done throughout the project. It's a constant thing we're thinking about is how can we do this the most efficient way possible. And that's a big reason why we did that show office is, it looks small when you're looking at this entire plan because it's a huge plan. But that's at least a couple $1 million saving that show office, I think, probably, when you just look at cost per square foot. And we've done things throughout the Coliseum to try and pick materials, be efficient with our mechanical systems. We just made a change with our mechanical systems recently that we think will save us some. So yeah, it has been something that's been done throughout to try to get it down there. It's a battle with the current inflation and escalation that we're seeing. So it's something that we're constantly fighting.
Okay. And I guess my other questions for you, David. I think we originally authorized, $9 million from MAPS 3 to go toward this. And I see there's not 940 here for construction, which wasn't originally part of what we what we allocated. Is that part of the 9 million or is this another
It's
piece?
part of the 9 million.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we didn't need the whole 9 million for the design part that we were supporting, and we're going to give the rest of it toward
That's
construction.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Travis, just one more thing. Given the environment that you've described about escalating cost and I guess difficulty in getting materials, is this the same timeline you gave that we've thought about all along, September of 2024? And do you think that's realistic or?
It is the same as far as the starting timeline. We've actually pushed up the completion timeline, and really that's going to be determined a lot by the GC, but also by MAPS is what the timeline that we've worked with them to give us. And it's just going to be us doing everything in our power to move things along as fast as we can. On our end is we can do everything we can on our end, bring extra people and get things turned around as fast as possible. Of course, we don't know we can't control what the future holds, but it's a concern for sure with every project. We're seeing it around, but we're trying to take steps like doing submittals earlier in the process to try to get them ordered early on in the process and things like that with items that we know are long lead times. At this point, we know some of the key items that have been taking a long time for the last year, so we can get those things in early, get them ordered early to hopefully try to mitigate that just a little bit.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. I pulled up the resolution of intent for MAPS 4 as it relates to the Fairgrounds Coliseum. are you telling us, and it seems like Director Todd, you're saying this as well, but please don't let me put words in anyone's mouth. There's a how much? 23 million you all are trying to
So there's
figure out?
still, yeah, $23 million.
Okay. And this is the result of an inflation cost?
Not all of it. So typically what we do with MAPS projects is we have a budget and we build the building. We've taken buildings and shrunk them down to get within the budget. With an arena, you can't keep shrinking it down and losing square feet because an arena is a specific size. So that was one of the constraints that we had. But yeah, the inflation has come about and hurt the project. But to a small degree, it probably wasn't budgeted as much as what it should have been.
But David, the amount allocated for MAPS 4 was never intended to be the full cost of the project, was it? Wasn't there was always intended to be other sources of money coming into it?
I do not know the answer to that.
I do.
Okay.
And that's why I pulled up the resolution. It was 63 million from MAPS for 25 million, which I think is about what we saw from the
That's right, yeah, the hotel motel tax.
And the reason why I pulled up the resolution is, like, I'll be curious to see what you all can come up with. It's just that here in the resolution, there was never a mention of, like, we might need other things.
I don't think it was anticipated at that time.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one. MAPS 3 excess funds.
Yeah.
That was the other one.
It was the 9 million.
I only mention it just to prepare everybody, like, you know, is this the first time we've heard this number before? I hadn't heard this number before.
Subcommittee heard it Tuesday.
Okay. Are you talking, was this in a news article yet?
Well, there was an article.
Yes, it was in the paper.
In the paper a few days ago, I guess after probably the subcommittee meeting, saying that it looked like the cost was going to be more than had been originally anticipated.
Okay. I only mention it just to, you know, this was one of the projects that people were, you know, very much championing on the one hand, but then there were some people who weren't. And I just want to make sure that we're just being, you know, I don't want anyone to feel like we didn't tell anybody something we knew at the time and or only now. You see
Yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
certainly not something we knew at the time.
Because I didn't, and and I'm not accusing anyone of anything. It's just like that was a bit of a shock to me right now to hear that. So,
I think that's a really good point, and I will just, to give you some comfort, James, I'll just say that this isn't any new issue. When you have projects that are pay as you go, and you have that require a very deliberate process that takes a decade or more to do, a lot of things happen in a decade from the planning time to the execution time. And so we faced similar issues in MAPS 3 more than one time at the river and on various other projects where what we thought when we started in 2010 didn't seem so realistic when we got to 2020. And so I don't think this will be the first or the last time that we have to deal with inflation, delays, bids that come in higher. So, but so far, I think we've always been able to work through them. But I think that's a result of the deliberate process, pay-as-you-go process that we have. Don't you, David?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, enough of that from me. But anyway, I think that we will see probably more of this rather than less of this as we go along in the economic environment we're in. So, any other questions? All right, shall we approve these? It's been moved by James Cooper that we approve it, seconded by Michael Adams. Is there further discussion of the item? If not, cast your ballot. It's passed. Thank you very much, Travis, for being here today. All right, that brings us then, David, to item C under Roman numeral 3, a change order for us to consider about the park.
Yes, sir. Item C is recommend approval of resolution approving change order number 11 Project M3 P16 WC 1000 SC 1073. Maps 3 Lower Scissor Tail Park, generally bounded by 40 South Robinson, 15th Street, South Harvey, 10th and South Walker. Increase of $452,495.64. Authorizing the use of excess collections and or interest to fund change order number 11. It's in Ward 6. So first of all, I have to clear up some confusion.
Good.
And I apologize for this. We did a change order 11 in May for the park. This body saw it, the subcommittee saw it, it was approved. We had issues with quantities that came up in between the subcommittee and getting it to council. So that change order never went to council, was never officially approved by council. We had several weeks of working out some issues with the water lines in there, ultimately, deciding that we would upsize that line from a 6-inch to a 12 with the utilities department participating with us to pay, I think it's $56,000 for that change, because we anticipate development going in that area, and we're not building it for the development, but it makes no sense to put in a 6-inch line and have them come tear it out in a year or two. So it made more sense to go ahead and upgrade those lines. Carrie, can you pull that map up? We have a map here, and I just want to clarify where that is. So all the streets, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 15th, all had water lines that went straight across the park and tied into Robinson Avenue. Those lines were pushing 100 years old. And just driving equipment around there by the water lines, they were breaking. And we didn't want fragile water lines in the park so that utilities would have to go out there and repair them and tear up the park. So we abandoned that piece of water line between Harvey and Robinson. So that made those lines at 12th, 13th, and 14th dead-end lines, which is not a good situation for a water system for a couple of reasons. You don't want stagnant water at the end of those lines, and also you need the water to circulate around to help with pressures, and also to help if there's a line break. So if there's a line break on 13th, you can turn off valves and still get it backfed and minimize the amount of people you turn off. So working with the utilities department, we are putting in these pieces of water line that you see on the map from 12th to 13th and 13th to 14th, and that completes the loop system that we need to do in there. Again, you saw this already. This is not an additional $450,000 from May. It's the same money. So I can go through each of the items if you want me to, and we can talk about those. So the first one is this water line upgrades, $347,000 that I just described. There's some additional gravel that needs to go under the synthetic grass surface on the soccer fields. If you remember, we have work that our contractor's doing, and then there's a donor that's coming in and doing the other piece of the field. And this is one of those reasons why we always talk about not buying parts for a place separate and doing separate contracts, because this got left out. It was a layer interface in between the subgrade and the synthetic surface. It's 2 inches of rock that got left out that has to go in there. So this is to bring in that rock, to water it and compact it to the specifications they need. Then there was 2 drainage basins that needed to be moved. And then there's a baby changing station in the sports pavilion that was just inadvertently left out of the plans. I hope that explains it and clarifies the issues. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Bob?
David, do we know how much the utilities department will contribute at the end?
Yes, we do. You know that 56,000.
David, when the lines were cut going across the park, is there a dead end on the Robinson side that has to be addressed too?
No, because Robinson continues
main.
to go north-south. It just has a little T there that's cut off.
So you're not tied in there, so you got to do the loops on the other side.
We don't need to loop it there. It's essentially just a straight line.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for David? Shall we approve it? It's been moved by Zane Boatwright, seconded by James Cooper, that we approve the resolution. Is there further discussion? Cast your vote. The measure has passed. All right, that takes us then to item D, David.
Item D is recommend resolution waiving informal bidding procedures for public improvement construction and ratifying participation in the sanitary sewer system extension by open market purchase, waiving informal bidding procedures for professional services by open market purchase, and authorizing the payment of $50,000 for sanitary sewer construction participation and $40,000 for professional services to Buchanan Realty related to the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 4 at 13660 Southwestern Avenue, Project M3H5, Ward 5. When we began design on this, we had intentions of extending a sanitary sewer line up 138th Street and tying into the wellness center. Development was occurring to the south of us, immediately adjacent to the property, and that developer was doing a sewer line that was coming from another place that allowed that sewer to be several feet deeper than the one we were providing. By making that deeper, it allows that line to be extended further to the south and serve more of the properties than our line would have. We estimated our line, the construction of that line, would be about $90,000. The developer didn't include us. He knew that that was happening, but he was ahead of us and put that line in. It makes no sense for us to go in and put that other line in there when we could tie into this much easier. So what we come to an agreement that our portion of tying into that line that he provided for the property would be the $90,000, which is essentially the same cost that we would have spent on putting in our own line. The reason why it has waiving informal bidding and all that is because it was built privately.
And it's done.
Yeah. The state law allows us to pay these amounts without bidding the project.
All right, are there questions for David? All right, shall we approve this item? It's been moved by Michael Dover and seconded by Michael Adams that we approve this item. Is there further discussion? Cast your ballot. The item has passed. All right, that takes us then, David, to item 3.
Item 3E is recommend approval of amendment number 14, project M3G1, MAPS 3 Program Consultant Services Contract with ADGPC, fee increase $262,090, retroactive to July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. This is the annual contract that we've done for 13 years, I guess, 14 years. Remember that ADG provides us with a lot of different services. Specifically, they have full-time person out at the park. They have people that help us in the field on the wellness centers. So what we did is we looked at the work that we've got coming up in the next year, which includes finishing the 2 wellness centers, wrapping up the park, but we've got sidewalks that are getting ready to kick off, and we've got a trail and trail connections on the Katy Trail that they'll be helping us on. So we looked at that, estimated some hours and some rates, and come up with this number. It's significantly less than what we have paid them in the past when they were doing full program services. I guess that's all I have to say.
Right, any questions? Jason's here if anybody has a question for him. All right, shall we approve it? Moved by James Cooper, seconded by Michael Adams, that we approve the item. Further discussion? Cast your ballot. The item is passed. All right, that takes us to item 4 on our agenda, new business. David, do you have any new business to present?
No, sir.
Any members of the advisory board have new business to present? Okay, that brings us then to item 5, the subcommittee reports. Any subcommittees report? Bob?
Tom, I would just add to our discussion earlier with the approval of the final plans and specs on the Coliseum at the Fairgrounds. That, in all probability, brings to an end the work of the Fairgrounds subcommittee. And in all likelihood, we had our last official meeting this week. The Coliseum now goes over to Maps 4 and will, proceed on the construction side there. It was something of a special moment. Former Mayor Ron Norick attended our meeting because he wanted to see those final plans and specs. Tim O'Toole was there, now retired from the State Fair. They both expressed their appreciation to the subcommittee and to this board, ultimately to the council, for the work that had been done with regard to the Fairgrounds. They've made tremendous improvements out there with the Bennett Center and now the Coliseum that will be there. It was somewhat of a poignant moment for Mayor Norick with the prospect that his father's named arena is going to come down pretty soon. And we sort of joke that, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, that maybe we ought to name this new Coliseum the Ron Norick Tim O'Toole Coliseum. And they said they were spending too much money paying for greens fees to play golf to be able to afford naming rights on the new building. But of course, naming, something come along later on. But it was kind of special for Mayor Norick to be there to see this transition, very significant transition after the Norick Arena has been there for 50 years, and now we're moving on to a new thing. But they were very complimentary of the committee and this work and this board for the work that has been done, and they're very pleased with the improvements that have been done at the State Fair. And Tim retires from his position, longtime position as CEO out there, with quite a legacy from what Maps 3 has done for the State Fair. So I just wanted to pass those comments along. They asked that I share those views with the advisory board today.
Thank you, Bob. That brings up something that I will mention. I meet monthly with the mayor, and one of the items on our agenda is kind of what are the plans for the continuation of the subcommittees and the Citizens Advisory Board for Maps 3 as I like to say, head into the home stretch here. David's already described in describing what we were going to do, some of the things we were going to do, but we do have 2 wellness centers to finish. And I guess we do have some things on trails and sidewalks. And of course, we're trying to get finished on the park. The one thing that we haven't mentioned is we do have money budgeted to do something with the Union Station. Do we not, David?
Yes, sir.
And so I mentioned, Bob reminds me that each subcommittee probably ought to be thinking about what it is they have to do that's left. And at some time, I would like to take to the mayor kind of a exit strategy for Maps 3. I'm not saying it needs to be done in the this month or next month. We still got some work to do, but we might ought to think about too our schedule for all the subcommittee meetings, and David of course is great at working all that out for us, and whether or not how often we need to meet as the Citizens Advisory Board. So I'd just like each one of you to be thinking about that, I don't foresee any imminent change between now and probably the first of the year, but as we start on 2023, if there's anything that you think we ought to do differently or think about differently than we've done it in the past, that's something we ought to think about, because I believe we'd need to take that to the council and to the mayor if we were going to do something, a process that was any different than we've been doing for the last dozen years, okay? So that's just something to think about for next time. That then takes us to item 6 on the agenda, David's report. David?
Just real quick, as we mentioned, 2 wellness centers underway. They're progressing nicely in spite of all the challenges that we have with materials and weather and things. But those are coming along good. Lower Park, really close to finishing. There'll be a opening celebration on September 23rd. Let's put that on your calendar. But the grass is getting rain today. It's been irrigated. It's growing in really well. Trees are looking good. As I also mentioned briefly, we have 2 more trails projects. Those are in design right now, and the sidewalks, they just had a kickoff meeting for the construction on that. Do want to mention that at the convention center, we did get the 2 electric vehicle charging stations put in. So there's 2 kiosks, if you will, but there's 4 spots. And it's on the east side of the parking lot if you want to go by and see them, but those are finished. I think that's about it.
Okay. That brings us then to, any questions for David? All right, then that brings us to item 7. Any comments by the board members?
Tom, I'll just,
Yes.
in talking about the Coliseum and tearing down of the Nordic and some of that stuff, in 1967 and 1968, my Wagner High School basketball team advanced to the state finals, and that arena was only, I guess, a couple of years old at that point in time. I think somebody said 65, and so that, as a young high school fan, you know, that was quite an adventure to come to the big city and stay in a motel and go to the basketball games at the arena. And so I have a long history, not a continuous, but an old history, I guess, with the arena down there. And it is a little nostalgic to think of it coming down. And I kind of reminisce a little bit about the times we had down there in those years.
Yeah, I think it is nostalgic. There are youngsters virtually in every community in our state that have memories like that. And it is great that we're investing in this, and those things will get to continue. There'll be more kids coming from all over the state, and it'll be a great thing. Anybody else? All right, are any comments from staff? How are we doing, Miss Lawyer? Carol, we doing okay? Okay, all right. Are there citizens? I've not been handed anything that indicates citizens have been asked to comment today. There's not any? All right, then that brings us to item 8 on the agenda, adjournment. Unless there's an objection, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you for coming today.